The attack on the lunar facilities had been repelled, but everyone knew the Meld Collective would try again. Earth's government decided to spread the care centers across the planet to make them harder to target. New centers opened in places like Arizona, Australia, and the Sahara Desert, where the hot, dry climate was comfortable for Vrolthak hatchlings. Lisa Coleman, a former elementary school teacher, managed the new Arizona Center. She had no previous experience with alien species, but had 20 years of working with children. Today she was giving a tour to a group of government officials. The hatchlings need at least 4 hours of basking time each day, Lisa explained, showing them a large room with heated sand beds. 30 young Vrolthak played or slept under special lamps that mimic their home sun. Their scales won't develop properly without the right heat and light. One of the officials, a stern-looking woman in a dark suit, frowned. These creatures will grow to be 8-foot warriors. Should we really be raising them on our planet? Lisa smiled patiently. They're just children, regardless of what they'll become. She waved at a young female hatchling who was watching them curiously. Tikva here loves human music, especially old rock songs. The hatchling chirped happily at the sound of her name. And they remember, Lisa continued. They remember who cared for them, who protected them. We're building peace for the future. The official didn't look convinced, but before she could respond, the room's lights flashed red. A computerized voice spoke, "Alert. Unauthorized craft approaching. All personnel implement security protocol." Lisa moved quickly, her teacher's instincts taking over. "Everyone line up," she called to the hatchlings, who immediately responded to her firm but calm voice. "We're going to our safe room just like we practiced." She led the group of officials and hatchlings toward a reinforced underground chamber. Through the windows, she could see staff rushing across the compound. In the distance, strange aircraft with smooth black surfaces descended from the clouds. "Meld ships," one of the officials said, suddenly looking afraid. "How did they get past our defenses?" The facility shook as something exploded nearby. Several hatchlings began making distressed sounds. "Sing with me," Lisa said loudly, keeping her voice steady despite her fear. "Remember our song. The sun will come out tomorrow." The hatchlings joined in with chirps and warbles, focusing on her rather than their fear. The group hurried down the stairs to the safe room door, but another explosion, closer this time, knocked everyone off their feet. Part of the ceiling collapsed, blocking the door. Lisa could smell smoke. The hatchlings were scared now, some crying out in their native sounds. She checked her communication device. No signal. "We need another exit," she told the officials. "There's an emergency tunnel in the next classroom." Lisa led them through the smoky hallway, keeping the smallest hatchlings close to her. When they reached the classroom, she found the hidden door in the floor and pulled it open. "It's a tight squeeze, but it leads to the surface beyond the compound walls," she explained. "The hatchlings go first." One by one, she helped the young Vrolthak into the tunnel. The officials followed. Lisa was about to enter when she heard a crash behind her. 3 Meld soldiers burst into the room. They looked almost human except for their gray skin and the way they moved in perfect unison. Without thinking, Lisa slammed the tunnel door shut and stood in front of it. She would not let them follow the children. "There's nowhere to go," one Meld soldier said in a flat voice. Lisa picked up a chair, holding it like a shield. "You'll have to go through me first." The soldiers paused, seemingly confused by this small human female who showed no fear. What they didn't see were the 6 adult Vrolthak warriors who had just entered the compound, led by a familiar green-scaled figure. Skull, now the size of a teenager, had brought help. The first time Lisa saw true Vrolthak battle rage was when they tore through the wall behind the Meld soldiers. In that moment, Lisa understood why the galaxy feared the Vrolthak, and why the Vrolthak now fought to protect humans. 5 years passed since the signing of the Guardian Pact. The war against the Meld Collective had finally ended 3 months ago, with a decisive victory for the Alliance. Today, a ceremony was being held at the largest care center in Arizona to celebrate both the peace and a special occasion. Susan Taylor adjusted her formal uniform, looking at herself in the mirror. At 52, her hair showed streaks of gray, but her eyes still held the same warmth and patience that had made her an ideal caregiver for Vrolthak hatchlings. "Are you ready?" Lisa Coleman asked, entering Susan's room. Lisa had become the director of all Earth Care facilities after her brave stand against the Meld soldiers years ago. "As ready as I'll ever be," Susan replied. "I never thought this day would come." They walked together through the hallways of the center. The building had grown over the years, now housing young from 15 different species. In one room, human caregivers read stories to Zentari children whose blue skin glowed with happiness. In another, Dean Patterson supervised Corvin cubs in a climbing exercise. They reached the main hall where hundreds of guests waited. Humans stood alongside aliens of all descriptions, but the guests of honor were easy to spot. 50 full-grown Vrolthak, all members of the first clutch that had been raised on Earth. Among them stood Sktal, now a towering 8-foot warrior with emerald scales and black markings that showed his royal lineage. War Chief Kravsak, older and more battle-scarred than ever, stood at the center of the room. Beside him waited Karen West and other human officials. Susan took her place near the front as the ceremony began. "Today we celebrate peace," Kravsak announced, his voice carrying across the quiet room. "The Meld Collective is defeated. Our worlds are safe." He looked around at the gathered aliens and humans. "But we also celebrate something more important. The first generation of Vrolthak raised by humans now takes their place as full warriors and citizens." Sktal stepped forward, his movements graceful despite his size. He wore the armor of a Vrolthak commander, but it was decorated with symbols of Earth alongside those of his homeworld. "I was an egg when I came to Earth," Sktal said, his English perfect after years of practice. "I knew nothing but the hands that held me, the voice that comforted me, the human who protected me." He turned to face Susan. "Today, I formally recognize Susan Taylor as my life mother, a bond as sacred to Vrolthak as blood." Susan felt tears in her eyes as Sktal knelt before her, lowering his head in the ultimate gesture of respect in Vrolthak culture. One by one, each of the 50 Vrolthak did the same with their human caregivers. The hall was silent except for the sound of occasional happy sobs from the humans. When the ceremony finished, Kravsak spoke again. "Because of humans, our young survived the war. Because of humans, ancient enemies now stand as allies. The galaxy is forever changed." Later that evening, as the celebrations continued, Susan walked with Sktal through the gardens of the care center. "What will you do now?" she asked. "Return to your home world." Sktal shook his head. "Earth is my home too. I will serve as ambassador between our worlds." He looked down at her with affection in his yellow eyes. "And I will help teach the next generation about the special bond between our species." They stopped at the edge of a new building under construction. Through the windows, Susan could see something remarkable, young of many different species playing together. Vrolthak hatchlings alongside Corvin cubs, Zentari children building blocks with Plex youngsters, species that would have been enemies now growing up together under human care. "This is what you built," Sktal said softly. "Not just peace between worlds, but understanding from the beginning." Susan watched as Peter Johnson, a former accountant who had found his calling as a caregiver, supervised the mixed group of alien children with gentle patience. In one corner, a Corvin cub and a Vrolthak hatchling, natural enemies for generations, slept peacefully side by side, guarded by a human who had become the most unlikely yet perfect protector in the galaxy. "The future will be different for them," Susan said, hope filling her heart. "And that makes everything worth it." Within a week, the original care center was no longer large enough. 3 more facilities were quickly built across Earth's moon. As news of the war spread, other nations on Earth offered to host similar centers. Hundreds of Vrolthak eggs arrived daily. Navy officer Greg Martinez oversaw security for all lunar care facilities. Today he was meeting with Earth's Defense Council to discuss the increasing risks. The Meld Collective knows about our arrangement with the Vrulfak, Greg explained, pointing to a map showing enemy movements. Intelligence suggests they may target these care centers. Admiral Patel frowned. Why would they attack non-combat facilities? To draw the Vrulfak away from the front lines, Greg replied. Or worst, to destroy their next generation. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. We need to establish a protected zone, Greg continued. I recommend deploying our new shield technology around all care facilities and stationing at least 2 warships in lunar orbit. The council quickly approved his plan. As Greg left the meeting, his communication device buzzed. Susan Taylor was calling. Greg, we have visitors, Susan said when he answered. You should come see this. An hour later, Greg stood in the main reception area of the original care center, staring at the most unusual delegation he had ever seen. 7 massive bear-like aliens towered over everyone in the room. Each stood 9 feet tall with thick brown fur and powerful limbs that ended in claws the size of steak knives. The Corvin, Dr. Green whispered to Greg. The only species in the galaxy the Vrulfak truly fear. The leader of the Corvin stepped forward. The translator device around its thick neck activated. Humans care for Vrulfak young. We watch. We see gentleness. We see protection. The creature's voice was surprisingly soft for its size. Corvin needs same help. Greg exchanged glances with Dr. Green. The Corvin were known to be even more aggressive than the Vrulfak. Their strength was legendary, and their territory wars brutal. You want us to care for your young too? Dr. Green asked. The Corvin leader nodded. Corvin cubs need special care. Our females must join battle against Meld. No one to watch cubs. It looked around the room. Vrulfak trust humans. Corvin will trust also. Before anyone could respond, alarms blared throughout the facility. Greg's device lit up with emergency alerts. Meld ships detected entering lunar space. A voice announced over the intercom. All non-essential personnel proceed to shelter areas. The Corvin leader growled, showing teeth that could crush bone. Meld, follow us here. We need to move everyone to the protected areas, Greg said, already checking his weapon. Dr. Green, get all the hatchlings to the inner chambers. Susan appeared, carrying Skatal, who had grown to the size of a human 3-year-old. The younger hatchlings are already being moved. The facility shook as something exploded in the distance. Our shields are holding, Greg reported after checking his device. Earth Defense Forces are engaging the Meld ships. The Corvin leader stepped forward. We fight too. It turned to its companions, barking harsh commands. The bear-like aliens bounded out of the reception area, heading toward the facility exits. Where are they going? Susan asked. To help defend us, Greg said, surprised by the unexpected allies. In the protection of the inner chamber, Susan sat with Skatal and a group of younger hatchlings. The small Vrulfak sensed the danger and huddled close to her. It's okay, she told them. Humans are protecting you. The Corvin are helping too. Greg stayed by the door, weapon ready. Through his earpiece, he heard reports of the battle raging in orbit. Earth ships and Corvin vessels fought side by side against the Meld attackers. Never thought I'd see the day, he muttered. Earth fighting alongside the galaxy's most feared predators. Skal looked up at him with intelligent eyes. Humans protect, the young Vrulfak said in halting English he had been learning. Vrulfak not forget. Greg nodded, understanding that in this moment, humanity's place in the galaxy was changing forever. News of the attack on the Arizona Center spread quickly. The story of Lisa Coleman standing against Meld soldiers to protect Vrulfak young became famous. Even more significant was how quickly the Vrulfak had responded to defend a human facility. Word traveled through the galaxy. More species began to approach Earth with similar requests. Diplomatic ships arrived weekly. Dean Patterson had never expected to work with aliens. At 38, he had spent 20 years in construction, building houses and office buildings. His large hands were calloused from hard work, and his broad shoulders carried the strength of a man who lifted heavy things daily. But when the call went out for volunteers at the new Corvin Care Center in northern Canada, Dean signed up. The cold forests reminded the bear-like aliens of their home world. "I still don't understand why they picked me," Dean said to Susan Taylor as they walked through the center. Susan had come to help train new human caregivers, bringing Skatal with her. The young Vrolthak now stood as tall as Susan's shoulder and followed her everywhere. "The Corvin have their reasons," Susan replied. "Just like the Vrolthak saw something in us that no other species did." They reached the main care area where 5 Corvin cubs played. Each was the size of a human child, but already showed the powerful build of their parents. Thick fur and shades of brown and black covered their bodies. The lead Corvin female, a massive creature named Mora, approached them. Despite her fearsome appearance, her movements were graceful. "Patterson," she rumbled through her translator. "Cubs need outside time. You take." Dean nodded. He had learned that Corvin speech was always direct. "Yes, I'll take them to the forest yard." Mora looked at Skatal with interest. Young Vrolthak grows strong with human. Then she turned to Susan. "Good work." Susan smiled. "Thank you, Mora." After the Corvin left, Dean gathered the cubs. "Outside time," he called, and the young aliens bounded toward him with surprising speed. Dean led the cubs through a large door to an enclosed area of forest. The cubs immediately began climbing trees and play fighting with each other. "They trust you," Susan observed. Dean shrugged. "I just talk to them like they're kids. Because they are kids, even if they'll grow up to be the most feared hunters in the galaxy." A loud buzzing interrupted them. The communication system activated, and Admiral Patel's face appeared on a nearby screen. "We have a new delegation arriving," the Admiral announced. "The Zentari have requested human caregivers for their spawning season." Susan looked surprised. "The Zentari? But they're not predators. They're peaceful." "That's right," Admiral Patel replied. "This isn't about battle rage anymore. They've seen how human care improves development in young Vrolthak and Corvin. They want the same benefits for their children." As the Admiral's image disappeared, Dean and Susan exchanged looks. "This changes everything," Susan said quietly. "It's not just about keeping young safe from battle rage anymore. They genuinely think we're better caregivers." One of the Corvin cubs approached Dean, holding up a broken branch. The cub made a questioning sound. "You want to play?" Dean asked, taking the branch. He gently tossed it, and the cub bounded after it with a happy growl. "I never thought I'd be playing fetch with an alien bear," Dean laughed. From the tree line, a deep voice answered. "We never thought we would trust our young to soft creatures with no claws." Dean turned to see Krell, the male Corvin leader, watching them. Unlike Mora, Krell rarely visited the care center. "The Meld Collective attacks our home system," Krell continued. "I leave to join battle." The massive alien looked at his cubs playing with Dean. "My heart is at peace knowing they are with you." Dean felt the weight of that trust. "We'll keep them safe," he promised. Krell nodded once. "Humans have no fangs, no claws, but you have something more valuable." He placed a massive paw briefly on Dean's shoulder. "You have hearts that protect all young, not just your own. This is rare in the galaxy." As Krell departed, Dean realized how much had changed. The most feared warriors in the universe now valued humans not for strength, but for compassion. The massive ship hung in space like a jagged mountain. Its dark metal surface reflected no light, only absorbing the distant star's glow. Lieutenant Jack Harris watched from the observation deck of the U.S. Traveler as the alien vessel approached. "Vrolthak warship holding position at 5,000 kilometers, sir," said the communications officer. Jack nodded. Everyone on the bridge stood silent. This was humanity's first contact with the Vrolthak, a species known throughout the explored galaxy as fierce warriors. Stories told of their battle prowess, their unbreakable honor code, and their ruthlessness to enemies. "They're hailing us again, Lieutenant," the officer said. "Put them through," Jack replied, straightening his uniform. The screen flickered to life. A reptilian face filled the display. Its scales were deep red with black markings. Yellow eyes with vertical pupils stared back at Jack. The creature's mouth, filled with rows of sharp teeth, moved as it spoke. "Humans of Earth vessel. Permission to send shuttle. Bring delegation. Important matter." The translator struggled with the harsh sounds of the Vrolthak language. Captain Laura Bell stepped forward. "Permission granted. Our docking bay is prepared." The Vrolthak made a gesture with its clawed hand before the screen went dark. 90 minutes later, Jack stood with Captain Bell and the diplomatic team as the alien shuttle landed. The bay doors opened, and 7 Vrolthak warriors stepped out. Each stood over 7 feet tall, their powerful bodies covered in armored scales. They carried no visible weapons, yet they didn't need any to appear dangerous. The leader approached. Up close, Jack could see the intricate patterns on its scales and the battle scars that marked its face. "I am Krafsak, War Chief of the Southern Clutch." The translator device spoke as the alien rumbled words. "We come with unusual request." Captain Bell nodded. "We are honored to receive you, War Chief. I am Captain Laura Bell. Whatever your request, we will consider it fairly." The War Chief made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Humans speak of fairness. Good. We watch your species for 3 cycles now. Study you. You are weak in body, but—" The alien paused, searching for words. "Your weakness may be what we need." Jack exchanged confused glances with the captain. The War Chief gestured, and one of the warriors stepped forward, carrying a large container. With careful movements unlike their fearsome reputation, the warrior opened it to reveal 5 leathery eggs nestled in a bed of red sand. "Our young," the War Chief said, "soon to hatch." Captain Bell leaned forward with interest. "You've brought your eggs to show us." "No." The War Chief's yellow eyes fixed on the humans. "We bring them for you to care for." Shocked silence filled the room. "I don't understand," Captain Bell finally said. The War Chief's scales rippled in what might have been discomfort. "Our race faces war. When Vrolthak prepare for battle, our bodies change. Chemicals flood our minds. Make us stronger, faster, better killers." The alien's voice dropped lower. "Makes us dangerous to our own hatchlings." Jack found his voice. "You want us to look after your children." "Yes. Among all spacefaring races, only humans show right mix of traits. Gentle with young. Fiercely protective. Patient. Our scientists study many species. Only humans can be trusted with Vrolthak eggs during war season." Captain Bell looked stunned. "This is unexpected, War Chief. Such an arrangement would require careful consideration and preparation." The War Chief nodded. "We provide all needs. Knowledge of hatching, feeding, training, but need human hands, human care." The alien gestured to the eggs. "These are royal clutch, most valuable of our kind. We trust you. Will humans accept?" Jack watched as Captain Bell studied the eggs. This wasn't the first contact scenario anyone had predicted. "We need to consult with our government," she said carefully. "But speaking personally, I'm deeply honored by your trust." The Vrolthak War Chief made a rumbling sound. "Good. We will wait." It looked directly at Jack. "Your species is strange to us, but perhaps that strangeness is exactly what our young need to survive." And with those words, humanity's place in the galaxy shifted in a way no one could have imagined. 2 months passed, and Susan found herself increasingly attached to Skull. The small Vrolthak hatchling had doubled in size, now the length of her forearm. His green scales had darkened to a deep emerald, and black markings were beginning to appear along his spine. Unlike the other hatchlings who settled easily into routines, Skull was difficult. He refused to sleep during scheduled rest periods and often rejected his food unless Susan prepared it in exactly the right way. "He's testing boundaries, Dr. Green said one morning as he watched Susan try to coax Sktal into eating. Just like human children, Susan replied with a tired smile. She had stayed late 3 nights in a row when Sktal refused to settle for anyone else. Sisvak, who now served as the permanent Vrolthak advisor at the center, approached them. This one has strong spirit. Will be great warrior someday. She looked at Susan with what might have been respect. Your patience surprises me. Vrolthak caregivers would have enforced eating with discipline. Susan shook her head. That's not how we do things. Perhaps that is why our young respond to you. Sisvak said. Your strange ways. She seemed to search for the right word. Love. The alien word sounded strange coming from the translator, but Susan understood. She did love Sktal, despite his difficult temperament. Perhaps because of it. That afternoon, the care center received important visitors. Diplomats from 5 other alien species came to observe the human Vrolthak program. Word had spread through the galaxy about the unusual arrangement. Susan was asked to demonstrate feeding techniques. As she cradled Sktal, explaining how humans had learned to combine Vrolthak feeding methods with human comforting techniques, she noticed one visitor watching with particular interest. The creature was tall and slender with blue fur and 4 arms. This is Ambassador Quinril of the Nessic, Dr. Green introduced. Their species is considering a similar arrangement with humans. The blue-furred alien stepped closer. Fascinating. Our scientists never considered emotional bonding as important to physical development. Yet your results are impressive. The ambassador gestured to Sktal, who was now eating happily from Susan's hands. That hatchling appears very well adjusted. Susan smiled. He has his moments. Later that evening, as most staff prepared to leave, an alarm sounded throughout the facility. Susan rushed to the main observation room, where screens showed a Vrolthak ship approaching lunar orbit at high speed. They didn't send advance notice, Dr. Green said, looking worried. Minutes later, 3 Vrolthak warriors burst into the center. Their scales were darker than Susan had ever seen, almost black, and their eyes had a wild look. Behind them came Kravsak, the war chief. The war has begun, he announced. His voice was different, deeper, and more guttural. The Meld Collective attacks our outer colonies. Susan felt a chill. She had heard of the Meld Collective, a hive mind species known for their ruthless expansion. We bring more eggs, Kravsak continued. Many more. Dr. Green stepped forward. War Chief, we'll need time to prepare additional facilities. No time, the warrior growled. Our warriors enter battle rage. Cannot be near eggs. He looked around the room, his gaze landing on Susan, who still held Sktal. The rage begins to affect even me. Susan could see it. The war chief's claws flexed in and out, and his breathing was rapid. We must leave quickly, he said, for safety of all. As the warriors departed, leaving behind containers holding over 30 new eggs, Susan looked down at Sktal. The hatchling sensed the tension and pressed closer to her. It's okay, she whispered, stroking his scales. I'll keep you safe. She didn't fully understand the Vrolthak battle rage, but seeing the changed behavior of the warriors made her realize just how important humans had become to their species' survival. Without humans to care for their young during these periods of aggression, the Vrolthak might have no future at all. Sktal chirped softly and wrapped his small clawed hand around her finger, holding on tight. 3 months after the first meeting with the Vrolthak, Susan Taylor walked through the newly built human Vrolthak Care Center on Earth's moon. The large domed structure housed special rooms designed to mimic the hot, dry climate of the Vrolthak homeworld. Susan checked her tablet one more time. As a pediatric nurse with 15 years of experience caring for human children, she never imagined she would be selected to care for alien babies. Yet here she was, one of 30 humans chosen for the first Vrolthak hatchling care program. Nervous? Asked Alan Diaz, a fellow nurse walking beside her. A little, Susan admitted. Everything I know about babies suddenly seems useless. They reached the main hatching chamber, where 5 large incubators held the eggs the Vrolthak had brought. Each egg was about the size of a beach ball, with a leathery brown shell that had dark red veins running across it. Dr. Paul Green, the program director, waved them over. Beside him stood a Vrolthak female named Sisvak, smaller than the warriors they had seen in videos, but still imposing with her crimson scales and amber eyes. "The first egg shows signs of hatching," Dr. Green said, pointing to the far incubator where an egg was rocking slightly. Sisvak stepped forward. "I will show proper handling technique." Her translator made her harsh language sound flat and mechanical. "When hatchling breaks shell, do not help. Must do alone to show strength." Susan nodded, taking mental notes. "After emergence, hatchling needs warmth. Hold close, like this." The Vrolthak demonstrated a cradling position with her arms. "Speak soft. Hatchlings sensitive to loud noise." "How do we feed them?" Ellen asked. Sisvak pointed to containers along the wall. "Protein mixture. Feed every 3 hours. Careful of fingers. Hatchlings bite." Susan smiled despite her nerves. Some things were universal. Human babies bit too. A sharp crack echoed through the room. All eyes turned to the rocking egg as a small claw punched through the shell. "It's starting," Dr. Green whispered. For the next 20 minutes, they watched as the hatchling fought its way out of the egg. Susan wanted badly to help the struggling creature, but remembered Sisvak's warning. Finally, with a wet sound, a small reptilian head pushed through, followed by a body no larger than a human newborn. The hatchling was beautiful in its alien way. Bright green scales covered its body, and golden eyes blinked in the light. "This one is Zkatal," Sisvak said. "Royal clutch. Very important." Susan stepped forward, following the holding technique she had been shown. Carefully, she lifted the wet hatchling, cradling it against her chest. Zkatal made a soft chirping sound and nuzzled against her warmth. "He likes you," Dr. Green said with a smile. Sisvak's expression was harder to read, but she nodded. "Good bond. Important for growth." Over the next week, more eggs hatched. Susan found herself primarily caring for Zkatal, who seemed to respond best to her. She learned the proper way to feed him, how to help him exercise his developing limbs, and the soft humming sounds that calmed him when he was agitated. One evening, as Susan was finishing her shift, the center received an unexpected visitor. The war chief Kravitsak himself arrived to check on the royal clutch. Susan stood nervously as the imposing Vrolthak examined each hatchling, finally coming to Zkatal, who was resting in her arms. "This one grows strong," the war chief said, a note of approval in his translated voice. "He's very clever," Susan replied. "He already recognizes different people." The war chief studied her for a long moment. "Our scientists were correct about humans. Your gentle hands and calm spirits are good for our young." He turned to Dr. Green. "War approaches faster than expected. Many more eggs will come. Prepare." As the war chief left, Susan looked down at the small life in her arms. Somehow, in the vastness of space, 2 completely different species had found an unexpected connection through the universal need to protect the next generation. Zkatal chirped and gripped her finger with his tiny claws, and Susan knew she was exactly where she needed to be. 6 months after the first Vrolthak eggs arrived on Earth, the galaxy looked very different. The war against the Meld Collective had spread to 12 star systems, but something unexpected had happened. Former enemies now fought side by side. Karen West stood in the United Nations building in New York, watching representatives from 20 alien species gather in the main hall. As Earth's chief diplomat for extraterrestrial relations, she had called this historic meeting. "The Meld Collective has taken 3 more planets," General Lee reported, pointing to a holographic map. "They're moving faster than expected." Karen nodded. "Then we need to formalize our alliance immediately." The room fell silent as Karen took her place at the center podium. A translator device on her collar would convert her words for all species present. For centuries, many of your species have fought each other, Karen began. Vrolthak and Corvin, Zentari and Plex. Ancient enemies all. She looked around the room. Now you fight together, alongside humans. A large Corvin rose from his seat. Humans protect our cubs. In return, we protect humans. Same for Vrolthak, added a red-scaled warrior. Our hatchlings grow strong in human care. Our debt is great. Karen smiled. What began as an arrangement for childcare has become something more. I propose we formalize this relationship with a treaty, the Guardian Pact. She tapped her tablet, and the terms appeared on screens around the room. Under this pact, humans will continue to care for the young of all signing species, Karen explained. In return, all member species pledge to defend Earth and human colonies, as well as each other. Murmurs filled the room as the representatives discussed the proposal. A slender blue-skinned Zentari spoke up. This would mean Zentari defending Plex territory, our traditional enemies. And Plex defending Zentari, Karen acknowledged, united by your shared trust in human guardians. While the delegates debated, Karen stepped aside to speak with Susan Taylor, who had been invited to represent the caregivers. How is Sktal? Karen asked. Growing too fast, Susan replied with a smile. He's learning Earth languages and history. He asks endless questions about humans. A commotion at the main doors interrupted their conversation. A group of Vrolthak warriors entered, followed by a familiar figure, War Chief Kravsak. His scales were battle-scared, but he no longer showed signs of battle rage. The Meld Collective has attacked Earth's moon, Kravsak announced. We defeated them, but they will return in greater numbers. The room erupted in concerned voices. Karen quickly returned to the podium. We need to decide now. Do we stand together? One by one, the representatives stepped forward to place their marks on the treaty. Vrolthak and Corvin, Zentari and Plex, species that had warred for generations, now signed the same document. When the last signature was recorded, Karen made it official. The Guardian Pact is formed. As the meeting ended, Kravsak approached Susan. The war accelerates. I bring news of Sktal's clutchmates. Susan's heart raced. Are they hurt? No, the war chief said. They reach warrior age soon. They ask to be stationed on Earth to protect the world that protected them. Susan felt tears in her eyes. The first generation of Vrolthak, raised by humans, was coming full circle. That evening, Karen met with Earth's leaders to explain what the Guardian Pact would mean. We are no longer just caregivers, she told them. Earth has become the center of a new galactic alliance. The most powerful species in known space now stand with us because we showed them something they have forgotten. What's that? Asked the Secretary General. Karen smiled. That strength comes in many forms, and the greatest might be the willingness to care for those not your own. Outside the window, ships from a dozen worlds moved in formation, preparing for the Meld Collective's next attack. Earth, once alone in the vastness of space, now stood at the heart of the most powerful alliance the galaxy had ever known.